Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you back to another segment of Attack of the Killer B-Sides. Now, this album that I do believe has a killer B-side, prior to its release, had a lot riding on it in terms of the success of the album, whether or not the audience and the critics alike would accept this band due to the fact that this band's lead singer had left the band a year previous. The band is Genesis, and the album with the killer B-side that we're going to be talking about today is A Trick of the Tail. A Trick of the Tail is Genesis' seventh release. It was released on the 13th of February, 1976. It was recorded between October and November of 1975. The album was produced by David Henschel and Genesis. David Henschel would go on to produce albums for Genesis throughout the rest of the 1970s, and their collaboration would come to an end after the release of Duke in 1980. A Trick of the Tail was released through Charisma Records in the UK and in Europe, and through Atco Records in North America. Upon release, A Trick of the Tail reached number 31 in the US charts, number 12 in the Canadian charts, and number 3 in the UK charts. So the album fared better in the UK and in Canada than it did in the US. And the overall playing time of the album is 51 minutes and 14 seconds. So quite a lengthy album for a single disc release. Now, in terms of the drama that went on behind the scenes, uh, there was no, how can I put this? There was no hiding the fact that in recent interviews over the years, that there was a lot of tension in the band for the recording of the band's previous release, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. The idea for the album, in terms of the storyline of the album, the concept came from Peter Gabriel, and he had insisted on writing the lyrics uh, entirely himself, which did put a strain on the band in terms of uh, the camaraderie that was going on in the band. And also, at the time, Peter Gabriel was going through some personal trauma with the birth of his daughter, who uh, his wife Jill had a difficult delivery, and he was going through the stresses of that. Plus, he was feeling like he was being put under pressure to commit to the band full time when he had the issues of what was going on with his family, which obviously didn't sit well with him. So, again, after he decided to leave the band, there was a lot of speculation as to whether the band would either get a new lead singer or whether they would just disband altogether. And the band did hold auditions two separate times for new lead singers. But then it was eventually decided that Phil Collins, at the suggestion of his then wife, Andrea, that he try out as lead singer. And it was then decided that, yes, he would indeed take over the role as lead singer for the band. Now, there has been speculation in the media over the years that it was Phil Collins who wanted Peter Gabriel out of the band due to his frustration at the time of what was going on with the tour for The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. The band for The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway did perform 100 shows for the tour, and it was said that only a handful of shows went off without a problem. Now, if you watch the 2007 documentary that came out with the reissue of A Trick of the Tail, Peter Gabriel has gone on record as saying that the notion that Phil Collins wanted Peter Gabriel out of the band was utter bullshit. Okay? He has stated categorically that that is not the case. If anything, Phil Collins wanted Peter Gabriel to stay in the band, but we won't go into it. Now, this album, A Trick of the Tail, has been stated by the band members Steve Hackett and Tony Banks in specifically that the recording of this album was one of the most pleasant experiences they've ever had. And again, for them, they had to prove to the fans and to the critics alike that they, in fact, could come up with the goods without what they considered to be and what the fans considered to be an integral member of Genesis. Now, and from my personal history with this album, I first purchased this album in 1991. I've gone on record as saying that I did go out one day and I purchased all of the Genesis back catalog in one fell swoop and um, started to listen to Genesis. But a trick of the tail for me was the one album uh, that I really latched onto in terms of the music, the arrangements, and to some people, it has been listed as Genesis Light, that it is not Genesis without Peter Gabriel. And it's also been said that Peter Gabriel has stated that to him, this album was considered Genesis Light. But there were also news reports or statements that Peter Gabriel did actually visit the band in the studio while they were recording this album. So believe what you want to believe. Okay. Now, the reason why, for me, that I found that this album was the one album that I could easily latch on to in terms of a listener, for me, the arrangements were, I don't want to say simple. I don't want to demean it by saying it's simple, but they were more straightforward, more linear, more like A to B to C to D. And the arrangements were more accessible to listen to in terms of, composition. And I just found that there was more variety on this album, and specifically on side B of this album. Now, side B starts off with Robbery, Assault, and Battery, a composition from Tony Banks and Phil Collins, clocking in at 6 minutes and 17 seconds. Now, Tony Banks has had this track or the piece of music around for quite a while, and he wanted to, in terms of the overall composition, he wanted to inject a bit of levity into the recordings with the stuff that was recorded previously for the album. Songs like, Dance on a Volcano and Squonk and Madman Moon. And Phil Collins did come in and help out with some lyrics. And in terms of the overall arrangement, it's a very accessible track, very rhythmic oriented in terms of the drumming and in terms of the singing. Basically, it tells a story of you know, this individual who is basically a cat burglar who takes pride and joy in sneaking around and robbing safes of homes or businesses. And basically, he uh, at one point meets his match in terms of going one step too far, testing fate one too many times. And Phil Collins does sing this vocal and character. And, as an example of him playing the Artful Dodger in the London production of Oliver when he was younger. It's very light. It's very, in terms of, again, very British. In terms of the arrangement and presentation, the drumming is very rhythmic. And in terms of the drum pattern that leads into the choruses, it's very open, very I don't want to say sparse, but there's more of a bounce to the drumming in terms of the rhythmic arrangement. And the middle eight section comes in on the track where they go into more of a jazz kind of arrangement of the piece. And Tony Banks comes in with beautiful atmospheric keyboards and use of Mellotron on this track. And again, it's very lighthearted. It's very tongue very firmly planted in cheek. It's not meant to be serious at all, but it's basically to tell a story of someone who, in his profession, tempted fate once too often, right? But again, very accessible. very accessible. The next track is Ripples, which I do believe was released as a single. This is a Mike Rutherford, Tony Banks composition, one of the lengthier tracks on the album at 8 minutes and 7 seconds. And Mike Rutherford wrote the verses, the music for it on the verses and the lyrics for it. And he plays a beautiful 12-string acoustic guitar on this. And even on the cover of the album, you see certain characters from the stories in the songs. You see the old spinster looking in the mirror and her younger reflection looking back at her. That is what this song represents, that time is fleeting. And it is beautifully done. As I said, Mike Rutherford does wrote the verses and the lyrics, and Tony Banks comes in the middle section where he does a beautifully, majestically orchestrated middle eight section with keyboards and Simpson piano, sprawling piano, beautiful mellotron interspersed with the keyboards, amazingly done, and a very heartfelt vocal delivery done by Phil Collins. So with those two songs, you're going from levity to uh, pretty much uh, melancholy and longing for what you've lost. And to me, Ripples, in terms of the song overall, it talks about how time is very fleeting and you need to take advantage of what you have in front of you. Because if you don't, it's gone. By the snap of your fingers, it's gone. And it's delivered in a very beautiful, beautiful, majestic, and very melancholy way. Okay. Again, Phil Collins on Ripples delivers a beautiful, emotional vocal. And in terms of the lyrics, uh, one of the lyrics is angels never know it's time to close the books and gracefully decline, right? So basically, overall, in the message, the time over that we know it, as we know it, sorry, is fleeting and precious. Track number three is the title track, A Trick of the Tail, a Tony Banks composition, one of the shortest tracks on the album, at 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Now, this is pretty much a tale of uh, an alien coming down to Earth and realizing that they're looking for what they believe to be, uh, in all intents and purposes, the city of gold, a city of opportunity, a city of riches, a city of acceptance, a life of acceptance, a civilization of acceptance. But what they find is culture shock, where they're treated very badly and treated as a freak. And on the cover, you see at the very far right of the cover, the character of the devil uh, and an individual are trying to grab him by the scruff of the neck and hold on to him, right? Meaning the freak of nature kind of thing. The track overall is a mid-tempo piece, beautifully done, beautifully executed in terms of the arrangement. Very playful, very lighthearted. And if you've seen the video of the track, you do see all four members of the band, you know, standing around the upright piano around Tony Banks, working out the song, pretty much routining it and seeing what the arrangement is of the song, how they're going to sing it. And it's pretty much a lighthearted track, right? And Tony Banks has said that he took inspiration after reading the book The Inheritors from Sir William Golding and from the Beatles' Getting Better from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And again, it is a lighthearted tale of an individual who believes that he can find greener pastures if he goes to another civilization, but then realizes that He misses where he came from. He doesn't like to be locked up in a cage and treated like a freak. And he realizes he needs to go home. And he realizes there's no place like home. Not to quote The Wizard of Oz, but that's pretty much how it is, right? And again, it's a very lighthearted track. So with those three tracks, you're going from lightheartedness to melancholy back to lightheartedness. And the final track on the album is the instrumental piece, what I consider to be the centerpiece of the album, Los Endos, The End. And this track is one of the only two tracks that were written by all four members of the band at the time, clocking in at 5 minutes and 48 seconds. And according to the information I have, um, Phil Collins came up with the basic rhythm structure, and he was inspired from the work that he was doing with his side project, Brand X, and also the track Promise of a Fisherman from the band Santana from their album Borboleta. Um, and he wanted to incorporate more of a looser playing style into Genesis. Now, the the idea for the intro of Los Endos came from a track called It's Yourself, which they were working on, which never made it onto an album. I do believe it was a B-side, and it would be end up on one of the compilations, the archive compilations, part two, that was released in, I do believe, in the 90s. I have the archive collection. Big surprise. And they decided to incorporate this piece, this section into the track. Now it starts off with swirling keyboards and very gentle guitar, very subtle guitar notes played by Steve Hackett. I've always said that Steve Hackett has a very delicate touch on the guitar, very beautifully done. And once it kicks into the full band coming in, playing their parts, it's very much a jazz fusion type of track. Very heavy bass, very rhythmic percussion, very fast-paced tempo that's going on with the drums and the percussion and the guitars. Very, again, uh, minimal guitars at this point. And the track continues on until you get to a section where uh, they start to incorporate interpolations of Dance on a Volcano from the start of the album and Squonk. Now, what happens is uh, the band are going along with the heavy rhythm of the bass and the drums, and cymbal crashes, etc. They come to a head, they come to a stop, and then you hear a lot of use of mellotron in keyboard passages, swirling keyboard passages, and mellotron that come in. And uh, roughly at the 3 minute and 44 mark, you hear marching drums that come in, a la the bass drum that comes in, and you slowly hear the increased use of choir vocals that come in. Now, I do believe that Tony Banks used his keyboards for this, but they build and build and build and build, and you hear the drums that come in on the bass drum, very rhythmic, very pulsating, and then the band just explodes, comes in full force, explodes with a, a reprieve of Squonk, and the band just comes in full force, and it almost sounds like an explosion. And they continued this passage, and it is beautiful. It's very majestic, very opulent, and it is wonderfully executed. And it continues right until the end. And on the fade out of the track, on the outro, you hear the lyric, "There's an angel standing in the sun," repeated twice, and then the lyric, "Free to get back home." Now, that lyric is used from uh, Supper's Ready on Foxtrot that Peter Gabriel sang. And to me, on the reason why they did that, personally, my opinion, was that They wanted to pay homage to the past in respect to Peter Gabriel, and to let the audience know that this was what they were going to do, that they were going to continue on without him, and they were going to carry forward and see what the future held for them. Okay, which to me, the fact that they used the I guess you call them the reprise phrasings of Dance on a Volcano and Squonk wraps up the album perfectly. Just ties it all up in a nice, neat little package. And again, the use of the lyrics of "There's an angel standing in the sun, waiting to get back home, free to get back home," sorry. Again, it pays homage to Peter Gabriel and like acknowledging the past, but also saying that we are going to carry on and see what the future holds for us. Okay. Now, this incarnation of Genesis, excuse me, would indeed carry on for one more studio recording later in 1976 with the release of Wind and Wuthering, and they would release Seconds Out in 1977, and then Steve Hackett would ultimately leave the band after the recording of Seconds Out. He would leave during the mixing stages of the album, and the band would carry on for the rest of their career as a trio in the studio and using two live touring musicians, Chester Thompson and Daryl Stuermer, for the live version of the band. Now, for me, the reason why I do believe again that side B of A Trick of the Tail is a killer B-side is the fact that you have a mixture of styles on the on side B. You have the levity and the experimentation of Robbery, Assault, and Battery, but you also have the seriousness and the melancholy of Ripples and the pure joy and abandonment of Los Endos. Okay. Um, I mean, for me, again, this is the one album of Genesis that at the time when I first heard it was, for me, I considered it one of the more accessible albums. That doesn't mean that the other albums prior were lacking in any form or fashion. I just thought that for me, A Trick of the Tail was a good entry point as for becoming a Genesis fan. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Attack of the Killer B-sides, side B of A Trick of the Tail. Please put down in the comments below your opinion of this album. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Where did I miss the boat? Or did I miss the boat on this idea or this album overall? And again, there are no right or wrong answers. I just thought that this exercise and just focusing on the B-sides of these albums was a fun exercise. Okay. And again, please let me know your comments below on this album or any other album of Genesis or any band in particular that you feel that a certain album of theirs has a killer B-side. That's it for now. Please click like and subscribe, and do hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content I've got coming up. And I will be doing more episodes with Bill Schuster in the future, and with Jim Bricker and Kent Cheshire. And yeah, I will get them to you as soon as we possibly can. All right, please look after yourselves and one another, and we'll see you soon with more episodes on the Music Den. Bye for now.